3 lessons learnt. Layla's old dedication to the North Western Railway was improving well, and she was doing fine on her shunting duties, and the trucks knew better not to try any tricks. And the passengers even stopped grumbling, and the big engines didn't have as much time to fussle about. And the same thing could have been said for Gordon. His opinion on Layla soon quickly changed. He didn't find her as a fellow Doncaster, but he also found her as a bumbling tank engine he could order about. Until one day, both James and Molly caught up with Gordon. They began to tease Layla. She seems some sort of engine, said James. We'll have some fun and order her about, laughed Molly. Here we go again, mumbled Nert. Always goes for the same old thing. She can't pull goods trains like any other goods engine can, said James. Not even me, said Molly, just for an express engine. That's why she's considered a tank engine, not a tender engine like us. And remember, said Gordon, shunters are what she's designed for, and a shunter she'll always be. Layla was very cross. I'll soon show those big engines a thing or two, she said, and decided her plan to get back at the big engines. That afternoon, Layla was at the yards when the porter arrived. He had some important news. Molly's Express is gonna need 4 coaches, he said. Will you help out, please? Certainly, sir, said Layla. Good, said the porter. I'll be back in a flash, and he walked away. Then Layla had an idea. She had already seen 2 coaches, so instead of shunting 4 and uncoupling the one in front, she decided the plan to give Molly 5 coaches. While no one was looking, she took the last 2 coaches and was ready to shunt them to the station to get payback at Molly. As soon as Layla arrived at the station with 2 coaches, Molly was still grumbling. Hurry up, you, she shouted. Then why don't you fetch your own coaches next time, said Layla crossly. Then it will give you as much time to dawdle about like I do, she said, and she puffed away crossly. The coaches were coupled to Molly's Express. The guard blew his whistle, and Molly was out of the station. Soon she hurried along. She raced through every single station and was ready to climb up the hill. She knew she was going to go up the Action Canyon. The Action Canyon was a bigger hill, and Molly had still remained a poor climber. She had sometimes tried hard to go up. Other times she'd break down, and sometimes she would run out of coal and water. But this time, what she was going through before was different. I can do it, she puffed with determination. But I'm afraid she didn't make it. As she was puffing up the hill, she began to feel the heavy train pulling against her. Oh no, not again, cried Molly. She tried to slam on her own brakes, but it was too late. Before her safety valve would burst, she began to roll back down, and before she could be forced down the hill, she stopped. The coaches didn't move at all. The guard walked over to the cab and spoke to Molly's driver. We have been given 5 coaches, he said crossly. We've been given 5 coaches, he said crossly. That's why it upsets the balance. Now we'll have to call for help. The guard called for help, but unfortunately the banker was busy, so Molly had to force the coaches back down the hill. As soon as she arrived back at Wellsworth Station, Molly was still upset. "Oh, this is so embarrassing," she moaned. And for her it was. With that, the last coaches were uncoupled from the two coaches Molly was pulling, and when the passengers found out, they were very cross with being left behind. "I hope no engine would come and see this," thought Molly, and she puffed away with the last two coaches to take to the big station. But when Molly arrived back at the station, she was too late. Just then, James was there. Laughed James. "Layla really got your back there," he said, "or else she would have taken a liking to you." Molly didn't say a word. She was as red as James's paintwork. After she had been coupled to the last three coaches, she puffed out feeling very cross and puffed away without saying a word. But as for James, on the other hand, he didn't know that after he left Wellsworth Station, Layla would really get her payback into him then. Later, James had now arrived at the other station when he found out that he couldn't park his coaches to the platform. His way was blocked by a long line of trucks at a siding. James was very cross. He groaned. What will I have to do? Shunt them? I will not." "Calm down," said his driver. "We'll ring for help." They telephoned, but it was no good. A few hours later, it began to be late. The agitated passengers began to feel very angry. James was very cross. He knew he was going to be the blame for it. Just then, he heard a whistle. "Hello," said Layla. "Sorry about that. Just had to take on water, that's all." With that, Layla pulled the goods out of the way. And James was finally back at the station again. The passengers got out of the coaches feeling very cross. James was beginning to feel late and very cross indeed. Next, Layla was beginning to play a trick on Gordon. "Now listen carefully," said Gordon. "I would like a smooth run. Do you understand?" "Yes, I do," said Layla darkly, as Gordon began to smile on his own. Then Layla got in front of the train, but she was behind it. And almost before the guard's whistle could blow, Layla blew her whistle. Gordon had enough steam to puff out, but unfortunately he was taken by surprise. He found himself pushed out of the station with his own coaches. And then he went steaming out of the main line elsewhere from Sodor. The passengers were all surprised. So was the guard, and they were beginning to complain again. "You wanted a smooth ride," said Layla, "so here you have it." And she sniggered away. Later, when sunset arrived, the Fat Controller came to congratulate Layla. "Your dedication on my railway has been inspiring," he said, "and I see now that both Molly, James and Gordon were getting too big for their buffers. I promise they will behave well next time." "That's all right," replied Layla. "I'm used to this anyway. This was just like old times before I ran away from here." The Fat Controller nodded. "Maybe," he said. "I'm sure next Next time, the passengers won't complain again. Maybe not, agreed Layla, and smiled happily as usual. But by the time she got back to the sheds, she could hear the other engines talking. Well, chuckled Boko. How was it to be treated by two little engines, eh, big engines? Said Boko. Maybe they've learned their lesson, no doubt, by a shunter, said Nert. A shunter is always a shunter, like you three said Layla. The three engines laughed, except for the three big engines that have been very silly indeed.